A mother never gave up on her missing daughter. When the child vanished without a trace during a summer festival, she dedicated her life to finding her. No one could have imagined what would happen next. A story of resilience and hope that will touch your heart. Welcome back. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and enjoy the story. The morning sun cast a golden glow over Maplewood Bay, illuminating the weathered fishing boats bobbing gently against the docks. Olivia Parker stood at the edge of her classroom window, watching as the first rays of light danced across the harbor. Waters. At 42, she had the kind of face that told stories, laugh lines framing intelligent green eyes, strands of silver weaving through her chestnut hair that she never bothered to color. The coastal town of Maplewood, Maine, had been her home for all her life, its rhythms and rituals as familiar to her as her own heartbeat. As she arranged the construction paper and scissors for her second-grade art project, she glanced at the clock. Only 3 hours until the summer solstice festival would begin, and her daughter Fiona was already buzzing with excitement. "Mom, can we please go early? Harper says the cotton candy stand opens first, and I don't want to miss it." 8-year-old Fiona bounced on her toes beside Olivia's desk, her honey-blonde braids swinging with each movement. Fiona had inherited her mother's curious spirit and her father's boundless energy, a combination that often left Olivia breathless but infinitely proud. "Remember our deal, sweet pea? You help me finish setting up for Monday's class, and then we'll be festival-bound." Olivia tucked a loose strand of hair behind Fiona's ear, noticing how her daughter's freckles had multiplied with the June sunshine. "Besides, I promised Mrs. Sullivan we'd help with the lantern release." Fiona sighed dramatically, but picked up a stack of summer reading lists with practiced efficiency. "Fine. But I get to pick our first 3 activities, and I want a lantern all to myself this year." Olivia nodded, her heart swelling with the kind of ordinary joy that she would later realize was anything but ordinary. Deal. The Maplewood. Summer Solstice Festival transformed the usually quiet town square into a vibrant celebration of community and tradition. Colorful banners stretched between lampposts, food stalls lined the perimeter emitting mouth-watering aromas, and the central gazebo had been decorated with wildflowers and twinkling lights in anticipation of the evening's lantern release. Local legend claimed that wishes made during the release would find their way to the stars, returning as blessings by winter solstice. By mid-afternoon, the festival was in full swing. Olivia watched as Fiona raced from one activity to another with her best friend Harper, their laughter carrying above the hum of the crowd. She captured mental photographs, Fiona's face painted with a butterfly design, her delighted squeal upon winning a stuffed octopus at the ring toss, the rainbow smear of cotton candy on her cheek. These images would sustain her through the darkness that lay ahead, though she couldn't have known it then. "They grow up so fast," said a voice beside her. It was Sheriff Donovan, his weathered face creasing into a smile as he handed Olivia a paper cup of lemonade. At 63, he'd been talking about retirement for years, but everyone knew the town wouldn't feel quite right without him watching over it. "Seems like yesterday she was toddling around in diapers." Olivia smiled, taking a sip of the tart. Sweetness. "Don't remind me. She's already talking about going to sleepaway camp next summer. I'm not sure my heart can take it." "You've raised a confident kid, Liv. That's something to be proud of." The conversation drifted to local gossip and plans for the new library wing, comfortable small-town talk that served as the social glue of places like Maplewood. When the town clock chimed 4, Olivia glanced around for Fiona, expecting to see her blonde braids bobbing somewhere in the crowd. She hadn't seen her for about 20 minutes, but that wasn't unusual. Fiona knew most of the townspeople and had been given permission to visit nearby stalls as long as she stayed within the festival boundaries. "I should round up my little butterfly," Olivia said, finishing her lemonade. "The face-painting booth closes soon, and I promised Mrs. Sullivan we'd help string up the lanterns at 5. Sheriff Donovan nodded, tipping his hat as he moved on. To greet other townspeople, Olivia walked toward the children's activity area, expecting to see Fiona among the cluster of familiar children. When she didn't spot her daughter, she approached Harper, who was carefully painting a wooden birdhouse. "Harper, sweetie, where's Fiona?" The little girl looked up, brush poised mid-stroke. "She went to get more tokens for the bounce house. Like forever ago." A small flutter of concern whispered through Olivia's chest, but she quieted it. The festival grounds weren't that large, and everyone knew Fiona. She walked to the token booth, scanning the lines of people. "Have you seen Fiona?" she asked the elderly man selling tokens, a retired fisherman who'd known Olivia since she was a child herself. "Not for at least half an hour, love. She bought 10 tokens and said something about the bounce house." The flutter in Olivia's chest grew stronger. She walked briskly to the bounce house, asking the attendant if Fiona had been there. "She was here earlier with the Freeman girl, but I haven't seen her for a while," the young attendant replied, barely looking up from her phone. 30 minutes of increasingly frantic searching followed. Olivia moved methodically through the festival, checking every booth, asking everyone she encountered. No one had seen Fiona recently. She found herself back at the town square, her heart now pounding uncomfortably against her ribs. She spotted Sheriff Donovan near the gazebo and hurried over. "John, I can't find Fiona. She's been missing for almost an hour now." The sheriff immediately straightened, his expression shifting from relaxed to alert. "Let's not panic yet. Kids get distracted. Where have you checked?" As Olivia recounted her search, a cold dread began to settle over her like an invisible cloak. The sheriff activated his radio, instructing his deputies to be on the lookout for an 8-year-old girl with blonde braids and a butterfly face. Painting? Within minutes, the festival's jovial atmosphere had been pierced by an undercurrent of tension as word spread and volunteers organized search parties. By sunset, the lanterns remained unlit in their boxes as helicopters circled overhead and flashlight beams crisscrossed the surrounding woods and beaches. Olivia stood in the center of the town square, a lighthouse in a storm of activity, her body rigid with fear, yet propelled by desperate hope. When Harper's mother approached with news that the girls had separated because Fiona wanted to see the tide pools, an area beyond the festival boundaries, Olivia's knees gave way beneath her. The image of Olivia Parker collapsing in the town square would burn itself into the collective memory of Maplewood, a visual manifestation of a nightmare no parent could imagine enduring. It was the moment when everything changed, when the secure fabric of their coastal community revealed its fragility. As neighbors helped her to a bench, Olivia's voice emerged as a broken whisper. "We have to find her. Please, we have to find my baby." The search headquarters was established in the community center adjacent to the town square. Maps were spread across tables. Volunteers signed up for search shifts, and a large whiteboard tracked every reported sighting and area cleared. Olivia refused to leave, surviving on coffee and the fierce determination that motherhood had instilled in her. She answered the same questions repeatedly for different officials. What was Fiona wearing? Any distinguishing marks? Had she mentioned wanting to go somewhere specific? Had there been any strange encounters recently? As dawn broke over Maplewood, casting long shadows across the now empty festival grounds, the initial shock gave way to organized persistence. State police joined local law enforcement, marine patrols scoured the coastline, and volunteers combed every inch of the surrounding forests. Fiona's face smiled from hastily printed flyers that appeared on every storefront and telephone pole. In a 20-mile radius, Olivia moved through these first days in a state of heightened awareness, every sense attuned to the possibility of her daughter's return. She clutched Fiona's favorite stuffed rabbit, a well-worn companion named Mr. Carrots, as she gave television interviews, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Someone must have seen something, she repeated, green eyes staring directly into the camera. She's out there, and I'm not stopping until she's home. If you are enjoying the story, type 5 in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this. If not, type 0. It helps me create even better content for you. Continuing. The first week after Fiona's disappearance brought a frenzy of media attention. News vans lined Maplewood's narrow streets, and reporters with solemn expressions delivered updates against the picturesque backdrop of the harbour. Olivia's ex-husband, Patrick, arrived from Boston, his initial shock quickly morphing into action as he established a reward fund and coordinated with his technology company to enhance the search's digital reach. "We'll find her, Liv," he said, the nickname falling naturally from his lips, despite their 3 years of separation. They sat in Olivia's kitchen, now command central for the civilian search efforts, surrounded by maps and volunteer schedules. Patrick's corporate efficiency had transformed the space into something resembling a military operation. "I've hired private investigators, and my company's security team is reviewing all surveillance footage from gas stations and businesses within a 100-mile radius." Olivia nodded, grateful for his resources but unable to shake the feeling that every passing hour dimmed their chances. "The police say there's no evidence of..." She couldn't bring herself to say the words abduction or foul play, as if giving voice to these possibilities might make them real. "Let's focus on what we can control," Patrick replied, his hand briefly covering hers before returning to his laptop. As days stretched into weeks, the initial unity of the search effort began to show cracks. The media presence dwindled, drawn away by newer tragedies and scandals. The police investigation hit one dead end after another. No suspicious vehicles had been reported, no unknown persons had been seen talking to Fiona, and searches of sex offender databases yielded nothing in the vicinity. Most painfully, the community's once unified front began to fracture. It started with subtle changes. Parents pulling their children closer when Olivia approached, conversations that halted abruptly when she entered the local cafe, hesitant glances that carried unspoken questions. Then came the whispers, which somehow always found their way back to her. She let an 8-year-old wander alone in a crowded festival. "I always see that child running around town unsupervised. There must have been problems at home we didn't know about." The cruelest blow came when the school principal gently suggested that perhaps Olivia should take extended leave from her teaching position. "For your own healing," he'd said, but the subtext was clear. Parents had expressed concerns about having their children taught by someone whose judgment they now questioned. Rather than fight, Olivia redirected her energy entirely to finding Fiona. She liquidated her retirement savings to fund continuing search efforts when official resources were redirected elsewhere. The cozy cottage she and Fiona had shared transformed. The refrigerator disappeared beneath a collage of flyers and contact information. The living room walls became a complex web of maps, timelines, and possible sightings. Most remarkably, Olivia never showed public vulnerability, maintaining composure even when the town held a memorial service for Fiona on the 1-year anniversary, a service she refused to attend. "It's a mourning ritual, not a funeral," Patrick had explained gently, now remarried, and with a stepdaughter who eyed Olivia with uncomfortable pity during his monthly visits to check on her. "The town needs closure, Liv." "Closure is for the dead," she'd replied, turning back to the board where she was connecting seemingly unrelated child disappearances across 3 states. "Fiona is alive, and I'll find her." As summer transitioned into autumn, and the tourists that fueled Maplewood's economy began to dwindle, a crucial development altered the investigation's trajectory. 3 months into the search, A security analyst hired by Patrick discovered grainy footage from a gas station 200 miles north in Brunswick. The image showed a child resembling Fiona, her face partially obscured but with the same distinctive way of tucking hair behind her ear. Olivia's heart nearly stopped when she saw the footage. "That's her," she whispered, her finger tracing the outline of the child's profile on the computer screen. "Look at how she tilts her head when she's curious. That's Fiona." The local detectives assigned to the case remained skeptical. "It's low-quality footage, Mrs. Parker. We can't even be certain of hair color, let alone identity." Undeterred, Olivia drove to Brunswick that same night, a folder of Fiona's photos on the passenger seat and a determination that had been gradually reshaping her from a soft-spoken teacher into something harder, more resolute. She slept in her car in the gas station parking lot, and when morning came, she began a methodical canvass of every business and residence within a mile radius. On the third day, exhausted and voice growing hoarse from repeating her daughter's description, Olivia found her first real lead. A motel clerk, 3 blocks from the gas station, remembered seeing a child who matched Fiona's description, but with a couple who claimed to be her aunt and uncle. "Quiet little thing," the clerk recalled, studying Fiona's school photo. "The man did all the talking, paid cash for 2 nights, said they were taking their niece to see the fall foliage up north." "Did they give names? Drive a car? Anything you remember could help," Olivia pressed, adrenaline surging through her veins. The clerk shook his head. "No names, I recall. They had an older model SUV, dark green or blue. The girl seemed shy but not scared. I wouldn't have thought twice about it if you hadn't shown me this picture." This small validation fueled Olivia's determination, though it led to no immediate breakthroughs. The SUV description was too vague, and no security cameras had captured its license plate. When she returned to Maplewood, however, something fundamental had changed. The uncertainty that had haunted her thoughts. Was Fiona alive? Had there been something she could have done differently? Had solidified into conviction. Her daughter was out there, and maternal instinct told her the Brunswick sighting was real. With each passing month, Olivia's transformation became more apparent. Her once warm personality hardened into something resilient but remote. The elementary school teacher, who had been known for her patience and gentle humor, became a woman of few words and intense focus. She developed an almost supernatural intuition for following leads that others dismissed, spending hours cross-referencing police reports and witness statements that she'd obtained through increasingly creative means. The timeline of this heart-wrenching journey reached the 1-year mark, then 18 months, with Olivia marking each milestone with increased resolve rather than diminishing hope. A particular devastating moment came when she must retrieve Fiona's belongings from her school, now occupied by a new student. As she packed away artwork and notebooks, Olivia discovered a journal entry written the week before Fiona disappeared. "When I grow up, I want to be just like Mom, because she never gives up on anything, even when it's super hard." The words became Olivia's mantra, sustaining her through the darkest moments of doubt. That night, she made a decision that would change the course of the investigation. She would become the voice her daughter no longer had. What began as a simple blog, Finding Fiona, A Mother's Journey, evolved into a powerful platform. Olivia documented every detail of the search with raw honesty, sharing both crushing disappointments and fragile hopes. Her writing, infused with the eloquence of her teaching background and the emotional depth of her experience, gradually attracted a following. Day 593. Today I followed another lead that ended in disappointment. The child in Rochester wasn't Fiona. But on the drive home, I realized something important. Each no brings me one step closer to the yes that will lead me to my daughter. I won't stop. I can't stop. Somewhere, Fiona is waiting for me to find her. Olivia didn't expect anything from the blog beyond a way to process her grief and keep Fiona's case alive in public memory. But 6 months into her writing, she received an email from the producer of a popular true crime podcast. They wanted to feature Fiona's story in a 3-part series, potentially reaching millions of listeners. The decision wasn't easy. Olivia had protected her privacy fiercely, knowing that public scrutiny often came with judgment. But the potential to reach someone, anyone, who might have information about Fiona outweighed her reservations. The podcast, titled Small Towns, Big Secrets, The Disappearance of Fiona Parker, became an unexpected hit. Listeners were captivated by the mystery of how a child could vanish from a close-knit community without a trace, and moved by Olivia's unwavering dedication. The series explored angles that local police had overlooked, including the possibility of connections to similar disappearances in neighboring states. With this exposure came both help and harm. New tips flooded in, some genuine, others cruel hoaxes designed to exploit a mother's desperation. Conspiracy theories emerged, many pointing fingers at those closest to Fiona, including Patrick and Olivia herself. Through it all, Olivia developed an uncanny ability to filter signal from noise, focusing only on leads with potential substance, a skill born from countless disappointments. The renewed attention brought Olivia into contact with the families of other missing children, creating an unexpected support network. In their company, she didn't have to explain her refusal to use past tense when speaking about Fiona, or justify why her daughter's room remained exactly as she'd left it. These parents understood that the limbo of a missing child creates its own language of hope and grief, indecipherable to those who haven't experienced it. Stay with me as we discover a shocking revelation that changes everything in Olivia's desperate search. Don't go anywhere. The most unexpected turn is just ahead. The 3rd year after Fiona's disappearance brought a crushing setback when authorities officially classified her case as cold. Detective Rivera, who had replaced the original investigator, delivered the news in Olivia's living room, now barely recognizable as a domestic space. "This doesn't mean we're giving up," Rivera said, her dark eyes reflecting genuine regret. "It just means we need new evidence to pursue active leads. We'll still follow up on any credible information that comes in." Olivia nodded mechanically, having anticipated this moment for months. "I understand the protocol, Detective, but I hope you understand that for me, there's no such thing as a cold case, not when it's my child." After Rivera left, Olivia sat motionless at her kitchen table until nightfall, the shadows lengthening across stacks of files and fading photographs. For the first time since Fiona vanished, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her exhaustion. Her health had deteriorated from stress and inadequate self-care. She'd developed severe insomnia and began experiencing panic attacks that left her gasping for breath in grocery store aisles or while driving past playgrounds. The financial strain had become impossible to ignore. With her savings depleted and only sporadic income from substitute teaching, Olivia had fallen behind on bills. One Tuesday morning, her neighbor Margaret spotted her collecting rainwater in buckets when the utility company shut off her water due to unpaid bills. The sight catalyzed a community intervention, not the kind that asked Olivia to move on, but one that recognized her fight for what it was, a mother's refusal to abandon her child. Former colleagues established a support fund, and a rotation of neighbors began bringing meals and helping with practical matters, allowing Olivia to continue her search without worrying about basic survival. This newfound support coincided with an unexpected development. The true crime podcast that had featured Fiona's story released a follow-up episode, revealing a pattern of similar cases across 3 states. In each instance, a child between 6 and 9 years old had disappeared from a public event, and in 2 cases there were unconfirmed sightings of the children, with adults claiming to be relatives. None of the cases had been definitively linked, but the similarities were striking enough to renew public interest. Olivia connected with the other families featured in the podcast, forming a grassroots network of parents united by unimaginable circumstances. They shared resources, emotional support, and information that official channels might miss. Together, they created a database of sightings, potential suspects, and community tips that crossed jurisdictional boundaries. "We're stronger together," said Elena Vasquez, whose son Miguel had vanished from a county fair in Vermont 2 years after Fiona's disappearance. "The authorities are limited by budgets and boundaries. We aren't." This coalition of grieving but determined parents became Olivia's chosen family. Their weekly video calls and constant text exchanges provided something she'd lost in Maplewood: people who understood her refusal to surrender to despair, who didn't flinch when she spoke of finding Fiona in the present tense. Have you ever known someone who refused to give up hope in an impossible situation? Or maybe you've been that person yourself. I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Olivia's relationship with Maplewood had grown increasingly complicated. Many residents still averted their eyes when they saw her in the grocery store, uncomfortable with the reminder of the tragedy that had stained their idyllic town. Others made well-intentioned but painful comments. "You look better, Olivia. It's good to see you moving forward," as if searching for her child was something to move beyond rather than through. Sheriff Donovan remained her steadfast ally, though he'd finally retired, passing the badge to a younger officer who viewed Fiona's case as ancient history. Despite his retirement, Donovan continued to make calls to his law enforcement contacts. Whenever Olivia uncovered new information, "Some cases get under your skin," he explained simply. "This one's under mine." Patrick's involvement had waned as his new family expanded to include a baby boy. His monthly check-ins became quarterly phone calls, his financial contributions smaller but still reliable. Olivia didn't blame him. She recognized that his path through grief had taken a different direction than hers. His new wife, Caroline, surprisingly became an unexpected source of support, often sending resources for Olivia's search when Patrick had grown too tired to engage. As the 4th anniversary of Fiona's disappearance approached, Olivia found herself at a crossroads. The blog and podcast attention had subsided, and new leads had dwindled to occasional false alarms. She'd followed every thread, investigated every possibility, and still Fiona remained missing. For the first time, doubt crept in like a fog, obscuring the certainty that had driven her for so long. It was during this period of questioning that the most extraordinary development occurred. Olivia received an unmarked envelope at her P.O. box, the address she used for blog-related correspondence to maintain privacy. Inside was a worn children's bracelet, a simple braided leather cord with colorful beads, identical to one Fiona had been wearing when she disappeared. Attached was a cryptic note with geographical coordinates and 3 words: "Still has hope." Olivia's hands trembled as she examined the bracelet. The particular pattern of beads, blue, green, yellow, blue, had been Fiona's own design, created during a mother-daughter craft afternoon. It wasn't information that had been released to the public or even mentioned in the podcast. She immediately contacted Detective Rivera, who received the evidence with professional skepticism. It could be authentic, but it could also be someone who's followed your blog closely enough to fabricate these details, Rivera cautioned. "We'll analyze it, but please don't get my hopes up," Olivia finished for her. "I know the drill, Detective." While waiting for official analysis, Olivia researched the coordinates herself. They led to a remote rural area in western Maine, centered around a place called Harmony Acres, a self-sufficient agricultural community known for its isolationist tendencies. The compound rarely engaged with outsiders, growing their own food and educating their children in a small private school on the property. Instead of sharing this discovery with Rivera, whose bureaucratic caution would delay any action, Olivia approached her network of parents of missing children. Together, they pooled resources to run a background check on Harmony Acres and its founder, Gabriel Wright, a former software engineer who had established the community 15 years earlier after what he described as a spiritual awakening. Nothing in Wright's background raised immediate red flags, no criminal record, no history of complaints at the commune. But something about the timing of the community's expansion phases caught Olivia's attention. New cabins had been constructed approximately every 18 months, each coinciding roughly with the disappearance of a child in the region. "It's circumstantial at best," Elena warned during one of their video conferences. "We need more before we can take this to authorities." Olivia stared at her friend's face on the screen, seeing her own desperate hope reflected back. "I can't wait for more evidence. If Fiona is there, if any of our children are there, every day matters." What followed was the most difficult decision of Olivia's journey. Instead of charging in recklessly or waiting for official channels, she would infiltrate Harmony Acres herself. Using skills developed over years of investigation, she methodically created a new identity, Lisa Matthews, a former elementary school teacher seeking a simpler life away from modern pressures. She dyed her recognizable chestnut hair a nondescript brown, adopted wire-rimmed glasses that altered her appearance, and practiced introducing herself with a slight Midwestern accent, different enough from her main coastal inflection to avoid raising suspicions. Most crucially, she applied for a teaching position at Harmony Acres' small private school, leveraging her actual qualifications while carefully curating her employment history to exclude any connection to Maplewood. "This is incredibly dangerous," Sheriff Donovan warned when she confided her plan to him. "If they've taken Fiona, they're capable of worse." "I've spent 4 years searching," Olivia replied, her voice steady. "I'll spend the next 40 if that's what it takes, but that bracelet was Fiona's. I know it in my bones, John." The retired sheriff recognized the futility of dissuading her and instead helped secure a concealed communications system, a specially modified watch that could send emergency signals to Olivia's support network if she found herself in danger. Elena and the other parents established a monitoring schedule with protocols for alerting authorities if Olivia missed a check-in. With these precautions in place, Olivia, now Lisa, drove her packed car to Harmony Acres, rehearsing her cover, story, and fighting the trembling anticipation that threatened to overwhelm her. The emotional toll of this deception, pretending not to be searching for her child while potentially being mere feet away from her, created the deepest internal conflict of her journey. Each night during the drive, she struggled with the moral implications of her lies while clinging to the hope that Fiona might be near. The moment has arrived. After 4 long years, will Olivia finally discover the truth about what happened to Fiona? The answer will change everything. Harmony Acres appeared deceptively idyllic as Olivia drove through its wooden gates. Nestled in a valley surrounded by dense pine forest, the community consisted of about 30 cabins arranged in a rough circle around central buildings, a dining hall, workshop spaces, and the small schoolhouse where she would be teaching. Gardens bursting with late summer produce stretched between buildings, tended by residents in simple, practical clothing. Gabriel Wright greeted her personally, a tall man with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a ponytail and the charismatic presence of someone accustomed to being listened to. His handshake was firm, his smile reaching his eyes as he welcomed Lisa to the community. "We're so pleased you've joined us," he said, leading her toward a small cabin that would be her home. Quality education is the foundation of our vision. Here, we believe children thrive away from the distractions and pressures of modern society. Olivia nodded, grateful for the sunglasses that hid the intensity of her gaze as she scanned every passing child, every distant figure. I couldn't agree more. After 10 years in public education, I was ready for an approach that nurtures the whole child. Life within the isolated community revealed layers of complexity Olivia hadn't anticipated. Many residents were there seeking simple lives away from modern pressures, not involved in any wrongdoing. Families worked together in the gardens, shared meals in the communal dining hall, and participated in nightly music circles. Children laughed and played in the open areas between cabins, appearing healthy and engaged. Yet there were troubling undercurrents. Certain areas of the compound were restricted with security measures that seemed excessive for a peaceful agricultural community. Gabriel maintained tight control over all external communications. Residents could only access the single satellite, phone or computer with internet connection under supervision. Most concerning were the special children who lived in cabins closest to Gabriel's larger home, attended separate classes, and rarely mixed with other community members. Olivia methodically mapped the compound in her mind, noting security, patterns, and unusual behaviors. She formed genuine connections with students and parents, making her undercover role increasingly conflicted. The teacher in her responded to these children's genuine enthusiasm for learning, while the mother in her remained laser-focused on finding Fiona. After weeks of careful observation, Olivia noticed a girl about Fiona's age, now 12, who, despite having darker hair, displayed mannerisms strikingly similar to her daughter's. The girl, introduced as Sky, was one of the special children who received individualized education. Unlike the other children who moved freely through the community, Sky was always accompanied by an adult, usually a stern-faced woman named Meredith, who was introduced as her aunt. Olivia orchestrated a chance encounter, volunteering to help with art supplies when she knew Sky would be in the craft building. The girl kept her eyes downcast, responding to questions with whispered one-word answers. Nothing in her manner suggested recognition of Olivia, but when she dropped her pencil case, Olivia noticed it had a hidden compartment containing a small carved wooden rabbit, nearly identical to the one Patrick had made for Fiona on her 5th birthday. The discovery sent electricity through Olivia's veins, but years of disciplined investigation had taught her caution. She couldn't risk endangering Sky, or Fiona, if that's who she truly was, with a premature revelation. Instead, she began building trust gradually, offering gentle encouragement during their brief interactions and leaving small tokens, a special seashell, a colorful stone, that held significance to Fiona but would seem like simple kindness to anyone watching. Simultaneously, Olivia gathered evidence about Gabriel's operation. Late at night, she photographed documents left in the school office that revealed a pattern of adoptions, children brought to the community from various locations, their backgrounds deliberately obscured. She collected discarded items that might yield DNA, a used bandage from when Sky scraped her knee, a plastic water bottle with lip marks, sending them out through Elena, who made monthly supply deliveries to the community as part of their arranged communication system. The DNA results, when they came back, destroyed any remaining doubt. The sample matched Fiona's DNA profile, preserved in the original investigation files. Sky was Fiona, alive, physically unharmed, but thoroughly enmeshed in a false reality, constructed by Gabriel Wright. With confirmation in hand, Olivia faced her greatest challenge: how to extract Fiona without endangering either of them. Gabriel's influence over the community was absolute. Many residents genuinely believed his philosophy of rescuing special children from the corrupting influence of mainstream society. Any direct confrontation risked violent resistance, or worse, a mass defensive reaction that could harm multiple children. Olivia's evidence gathering nearly exposed her true identity when a suspicious security guard caught her photographing documents. She deflected his concerns with a believable excuse about researching teaching methods, but the incident put her under increased scrutiny. That night, she activated the emergency signal on her watch, alerting Elena and Sheriff Donovan that she needed extraction with Fiona within 48 hours. The plan they had developed for this scenario involved coordinated action with authorities, but fate intervened in an unexpected form. A seasonal drought had left the surrounding forest dangerously dry, and an electrical storm passing through the region ignited a wildfire that rapidly approached Harmony Acres. As smoke darkened the horizon, Gabriel ordered an emergency evacuation. The community had drilled for this possibility, with designated vehicles and escape routes. Amid the controlled chaos, Olivia noticed Gabriel separating the special children, including Fiona, directing them toward his private SUV rather than the community buses. In this moment of crisis, with the compound emptying and the smell of smoke growing stronger, Olivia made her move. She approached Gabriel's vehicle, where Fiona and 2 other children were already seated in the back, secured by Meredith. "I can help with the children while you coordinate the evacuation," Olivia offered Gabriel, her heart thundering in her chest. Gabriel's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's thoughtful, Lisa, but these children require special handling. Meredith knows their needs." Olivia stepped closer, dropping her voice. "I know who they are, Gabriel. I know what you've done." The shift in his expression was subtle but unmistakable, a flicker of calculation replacing benevolent authority. "I've saved them from a toxic world," he said quietly, "given them purpose and protection." "You've stolen them from people who love them," Olivia replied, her disguise falling away as she straightened to her full height, meeting his gaze directly. "You've stolen my daughter." In the dramatic confrontation that followed, Fiona, who had been subjected to years of manipulation and false narratives about her past, watched with wide, confused eyes as the teacher she barely knew claimed to be her mother. Gabriel attempted to use this confusion against Olivia, telling Fiona that this woman is mentally ill and that they needed to leave immediately. The turning point came when Sheriff Donovan arrived with state police, their vehicles blocking the exit road. Gabriel, seeing his escape route closed, made a final desperate appeal to Fiona. "Remember what I taught you. The outside world wants to separate us because they fear our truth." Olivia, recognizing the power of Gabriel's conditioning, didn't force Fiona to choose. Instead, she knelt at eye level with her daughter and spoke softly. "I won't make you come with me if you're afraid, but I've been looking for you every day. Since you disappeared from the Maplewood Summer Festival 5 years ago, I've never stopped searching, and I never will." The mention of Maplewood triggered something in Fiona's expression, a flicker of recognition, breaking through years of reprogramming. "The lanterns," she whispered. "We were going to release lanterns." Olivia nodded, tears streaming freely. "Now, that's right, Sweet Pea. We were going to make wishes that would find their way to the stars." In the chaos of sirens, shouting, and the approaching wildfire, Fiona made a choice that would begin her journey home. She reached for Olivia's hand. The authorities discovered 2 other missing children at the compound, and Gabriel and several accomplices were taken into custody. DNA tests confirmed Fiona's identity, and investigations revealed that Gabriel had been targeting children he believed showed signs of special abilities or intelligence, convincing himself he was saving them for a greater purpose. The emotional reunion between mother and daughter was complicated by Fiona's confusion and years of conditioning. The healing process began slowly, with recognition coming in small moments. Fiona unconsciously humming a lullaby Olivia used to sing, or asking about Mr. Carrots by name without prompting. The psychological trauma experts warned would be a long-term challenge, but they also emphasized Fiona's remarkable resilience. The community that had once doubted Olivia now celebrated her persistence, though she found their praise hollow after years of isolation. Some, like Margaret, who had organized the meal deliveries, earned genuine forgiveness. Others, who had whispered the cruelest judgments, Olivia simply nodded to politely before moving on. Patrick's reaction to Fiona's recovery was complex, overwhelming joy mixed with guilt for having encouraged Olivia to find closure years earlier. "You never gave up," he said during their first family meeting with the trauma counselor. "When everyone else did, including me, you kept going." "She's my daughter," Olivia replied simply. There was no other option. One more shocking revelation awaits in this extraordinary journey of a mother's love and determination. What happens next will leave you speechless. The story concludes 5 years after Fiona's disappearance and 6 months after her return. Rather than remain in Maplewood with its complicated memories, Olivia established a rural homestead in a neighboring county, close enough for continued therapy and support services, but removed from the curious stares and well-meaning but often intrusive concern of townspeople who had known them before. The modest farmhouse sat on 10 acres of land, with wide windows that eliminated any feeling of confinement for Fiona, who still struggled with enclosed spaces after years in the controlled environment of Harmony Acres. A therapy dog named Maple, a gentle golden retriever specially trained to support trauma survivors, became Fiona's constant companion, alerting Olivia when nightmares or anxiety attacks approached and providing comforting pressure during therapy sessions. Fiona's recovery followed no predictable timeline. Some days brought remarkable breakthroughs, spontaneously remembering the name of her first-grade teacher or recalling the layout of their old cottage. Other days found her retreating into herself, overwhelmed by the task of reconciling her life as Skye with her true identity as Fiona. The trauma specialists emphasized that this pattern was normal, that healing wasn't linear, but rather a series of spirals that sometimes revisited difficult territory. "She's been through an experience few can comprehend," Dr. Levine, the child psychologist specializing in abduction recovery, explained during one consultation. "The fact that she can form attachments at all after such profound betrayal is testament to the secure foundation you built in her early years." Olivia herself faced the challenge of transitioning from the single-minded focus of searching to the complex reality of supporting Fiona's recovery. The skills she'd developed during her years of investigation, research abilities, networking, and an almost supernatural intuition, found new purpose when she began consulting remotely for families of missing children. Working closely with Elena and their network, she helped develop protocols for family-led investigations that worked cooperatively with law enforcement rather than at cross purposes. "You've revolutionized how we approach these cases," Sheriff Donovan told her during one of his regular visits to the farmhouse. Now fully retired, he had become something of a grandfather figure to Fiona, whose memories of male authority figures had been tainted by Gabriel's manipulation. The Parker Protocol is being adopted by departments across New England. Olivia accepted the compliment with the quiet confidence that had replaced her earlier desperation. "I just don't want any parent to hear that they should give up hope, not when there are still roads untraveled." Patrick and Caroline remained part of their lives, though in a carefully structured way that respected Fiona's need for consistency and clear boundaries. Their monthly visits gradually extended as Fiona became more comfortable, eventually including her half-brother Lucas, whose unquestioning acceptance of Fiona as his big sister provided a relationship uncomplicated by knowledge of the trauma she'd endured. The most profound healing moments often came in ordinary interactions, helping with homework, cooking dinner together, or watching a movie curled up on the couch. Fiona still struggled with trust, checking doors and windows before sleep and keeping a packed emergency bag in her closet, but increasingly these security measures became routine rather than anxiety-driven necessities. On the anniversary of Fiona's return, a date Olivia chose to celebrate rather than the day of her disappearance, they stood together in the back garden at twilight. Olivia had suggested they revive a tradition they had shared before: planting moonflower seeds that would bloom only at night, their white flowers unfolding like stars in the darkness. As they worked together in the soft evening light, digging small holes and carefully placing seeds, Fiona paused, her hands covered in rich soil. "Mom," she said, the word still sometimes catching in her throat, "do you remember when we used to watch for Cassiopeia?" Olivia froze, her heart suddenly racing. They had indeed spent countless summer evenings identifying constellations, with Cassiopeia, the Queen's chair, being Fiona's favorite. But this memory had never been mentioned during therapy, never emerged in their careful reconstruction of their shared past. "Yes," Olivia answered softly, trying to contain the emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "You always said she looked more like a butterfly than a queen's chair." Fiona nodded, returning to her planting with the matter-of-fact acceptance of childhood. "I still think so. Can we get a star chart for when the moonflowers bloom?" This simple moment of genuine recollection, unprompted, natural, and wholly Fiona's own, meant more than any dramatic reunion could have. It represented not just the recovery of a memory, but the restoration of her daughter's true identity, emerging gradually like the moonflowers they were planting, opening slowly in its own time, reaching toward the light. Later that night, after Fiona had fallen asleep with Maple curled protectively at her feet, Olivia sat on the porch swing, watching the stars emerge. The journey had transformed her in ways she was still discovering, hardened her in some places, softened her in others. The teacher who had collapsed in the town square 5 years ago was gone, replaced by a woman who understood both the depths of despair and the heights of fierce, enduring love. She thought of the thousands of families still searching, still waiting for answers, and opened her laptop to respond to emails from parents who had reached out for guidance. Her fingers paused over the keys as she considered what wisdom she could offer from her extraordinary experience. In the end, she wrote only what she knew to be unshakably true. Hope is not a passive state. It's an active force that carries you forward when nothing else can. Keep moving. Keep searching. The path home exists, even when you can't see it yet. Inside the farmhouse, Fiona stirred in her sleep, murmuring something unintelligible before settling again. Olivia listened to the rhythmic breathing that had once been nothing but a memory and a prayer. Now it was the soundtrack of her present, the gift she had fought impossible odds to reclaim. The moonflowers would bloom tomorrow night, unfurling, their petals in darkness, just as Fiona was gradually unfurling her true self after years in shadow. Watching the stars of Cassiopeia twinkle above the garden where new life was taking root, Olivia Parker smiled. The journey had been unimaginable, but the destination, this moment of quiet, ordinary joy, was worth every step. Congratulations. Type 9 in the comments so that I know you stayed until the end with me. Thank you for watching, and until tomorrow's story on this same channel.